What's going on, spectators? Thank you very much for tuning in for yet another episode of Spec Tales. I am your Miracle Man host, Jake, along with my bearded Scrooge McDuck co-host, Jesus. What's going on, Jesus?
Oh man, I'm just over here counting my coins from my vault that I was just swimming in.
Just
so many coins. There's just so many coins to count. Yeah, there's not enough time right now. Not enough time. I'm like on 30,242. So
don't lose track.
That's all I was doing.
If this is your first time listening to Spec Tales, we would like to say thank you for letting us invade your ear holes for a little while. We're confident you won't regret it. Spec Tales is a comic book podcast that has collectors and creators. What's your Grail Tale? Each week, we explore news stories about comic book grails we love and the epic journeys behind how they were obtained or how they inspired new creativity.
Yeah, we also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
This week, Jesus, we've got one of the most unexpected guests I think we've ever had. I have to admit, I did not know where this conversation was going to go, but boy, it did not disappoint. We invited Lance Linderman, one of the proud new owners of Gold Key Comics, to join the show. That's right, the publishing company.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, you're getting a 2-for-1 in this one. This is one of those issues where you can read front page to back, and then you can flip it around and read back page to front.
Seriously, he gave us so much information, and 2 Grail Tales. Seriously, like he didn't even mean to do it. It was 2 Grail Tales, and they're interconnected, and literally, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, man, those are the best where they don't do it on purpose, and it just kind of happens. I mean, those are the best stories.
Exactly. But before we jump into the conversation, we've got another Scarce Army roll call.
That's right, man. The Scarce Army has officially jumped continents. Thank you to our newest Scarce Army recruit, Nathan Street, who is listening all the way from Europe. It's only a matter of time before we take the world over. 5 more continents to go.
It's like Pinky in the Brain. Only,
I mean, that's exactly what we do. And let me just say this. There's only one guy over there in Europe right now in the Scarce Army. But I've heard, I didn't say this again. I'm just telling you, I've heard that one Scarce Army member is equivalent to like 300 men. I mean, that's, I don't know. That's what I've heard.
Antarctica is going to be a hard one, but we'll get there.
For sure. There's still some places up there that listen, man.
So thank you, Nathan. We genuinely appreciate it. And if you're listening out there and you enjoy Spec Tales, please consider heading over to our Patreon page to learn more about all the benefits included in our $3.99 per month subscription. Everything we get from Patreon goes right back into Spec Tales and helps us produce new and interesting comic content.
You can find a link to our Patreon page in the show notes or head over to patreon.com and search Spec Tales.
We literally just sent out our first monthly newsletter, and if you go over to our Patreon page, you can learn all about some of the other exclusive benefits, including Floppies, our Patreon-only monthly show. Last month, we did a comic book elimination game that we did with a few of our previous guests, and next month, we're doing something completely different, but equally as crazy and fun. So, all that said, Jesus, are you ready for a double dippity Grail Tale extravaganza?
Wait, you're telling me I could dip twice into this Grail Tale?
I said double dippity.
Let's do it, man.
All right, so break out your Hanna-Barbera lunchbox and get ready for our dinner date with Boris Karloff. This is episode 35.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spec Tales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Welcome back again, all you spectators. This week, Jesus and I are extremely excited to be joined by Lance Linderman, the proud new owner of the classic comic publisher, Gold Key Comics. Lance, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I'm pumped to be here with you.
Man, we're pumped to have you on, Lance. Thank you for joining us, man. We are really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. So Lance, I'm not even going to waste any time with some intro questions. I'm going to kind of get right to it. I go to goldkeycomics.com and I see a very intriguing statement. It says, iconic brand, new era, which I think is a bold statement. I think it's it definitely really has me intrigued about what's coming. So let's talk about it a little bit. The last thing I can see or that I can research or find online was that Gold Key was, at least according to Wikipedia, Gold Key was acquired in 2021 by a comic creator and hacker named Robert Willis. Is what Wikipedia has. But maybe you could tell us the story about how you came to acquire Gold Key.
Yeah, it's a trippy one. To hit the first thing you said though, the iconic brand, new era. One of the guys, I'm not the only owner. There's actually 4 of us. Ghost Cactus, you guys brought him up earlier. That's Arnold Guerrero. Another guy named Adam Brooks from the Clueless Collector, and then Mike's Rack. And Mike is kind of my sensei, if you will. He's the guy that brought me into comic books. If you've ever seen one of our Instagram shows, we do barn sales, and it's in his barn, and it's comic mecca heaven, man. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of boxes all around us. Similar to, you guys can see behind me, it's just got stacks and stacks of boxes. But his is probably 3 times the amount. So sorry for the wandering here, because I could just go off on tangents about him. I'd like to create a little bit of an aura around his name and just keep him kind of like this sensei mystical dude. Because honestly, when it comes to the speculation stuff, which I know we're going to talk about later, he's my inside guy. He's been doing cons for a long time. He's a geek at heart. He loves comic books, understands story arc, you name it. Anyways, the Gold Key story is funny. You guys brought up, so far I think we said hacker, from Texas, actually. So that's out by you, Jesus. Basically, it was really weird how it happened. I was selling. And this is going to cross into another story, because I was selling my Grail book. So I don't know if you guys, these 2 stories kind of collide a little bit. So if I'm allowed to, I'll just keep the information on that small. I don't know. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, of course. Let's, yeah. You know what? We'll use this a little bit as a tease for that Grail tale we're going to tell in a moment. But please continue with your story.
Okay. So without mentioning the Grail tale, basically, I had a very spicy book that sat in front of me for a long time that I was very proud to own. Well, I finally decided that it was time to move on and sell it. And as we do some other work and other businesses, and I needed some money to help fund something. And this is a big enough book to kind of put some little seed money into something. And this dude wrote me on Facebook Messenger, which is like the way I think a grandma would reach out. But he's like, hey, man, my name is Robert Willis, and I've got something here that I just don't know you might be interested in, but I really want your book. And I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. What do you got, man? But I hope it's $30,000, because that's what I asked for this book. And he just writes back, and he says, I own Gold Key, man.
Wow.
I was like, that's cool, dude. I thought Gold Key died in the 80s, bro. So what? And the more I thought about it, I just thought, you know what? If I can acquire Gold Key, that gives me a front of the door entrance to whatever meeting I want. Maybe not whatever meeting I want, but it gives me a really good step in the industry to have conversations with people like you guys and other people in the industry, which, and I'm telling you, man, since this thing's happened, we haven't even put out an official press release. So you guys are actually the first people that are even going to talk about it. In fact, all we did was we said, hey, we're going to talk about it on our Instagrams and just let our people know that have been with us for a few years, but we're not going to do an official press release for a little while. So you guys are technically going to be the first people to cover this in any sort of detail.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I know. So the way that I acquired it was by selling a book that I totally regret selling.
Wait, so I just want to get this on recorded record here. you're telling me you acquired Gold Key by trading a comic book. You bought it.
My Grail Tale, dude. Not just a comic book, like
man,
my book, dude. And it wasn't just that. It was my book plus my friend's money.
So there was a cash part of the exchange, but that is still the fact that a comic book publishing company
was part of it.
was acquired by also trading, parlaying for a comic book itself is just mind-blowing to me. That's incredible. That's the greatest Grail Tale. It's like a Grail Tale inception. It's a Grail Tale inside of a Grail Tale.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome, man. Now we're going to inspire people to trade their books for publishing companies, man. Some of our listeners.
Yeah. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how we acquired it. Yeah. There was a book in the trade and some cash, and we flew out to Texas to meet with the hacker. It's just funny though, because everybody that has talked to me about it is like, man, have you heard of this guy? He's kind of this like crazy hacker dude. And he's actually a really nice guy. I don't know anything about his political stance. I've heard he's got some strange political stances and stuff. Nice guy. We had to be like 30 feet apart at all times because he was very conscientious with the COVID stuff going on and stuff. So the whole interaction was just kind of different, it was during the pandemic, if you will, but yeah. And so now I've got the rights to Gold Key.
What, if you don't mind, when was this? When did the transaction take place?
Oh man. Well, here. Oh no, that's actually stuck to the wall. I was going to grab you guys so I could show you the U.S. Patent Office, and I was like, that's not coming off the wall. Probably about 4 to 5 months ago, maybe not that long ago.
Oh, okay. So very recent. That's
yeah.
Cool.
And it was kind of as the pandemic was kind of calming down a little bit, and people were traveling again. So,
well, the reason I said hacker was seriously, it says it on Wikipedia. When you go to Gold Key's Wikipedia page, it says that it was acquired by a hacker, and I just thought that was such a 90s term. I don't do. I mean, I know hackers still exist, but I thought that they really only kind of existed in like, what was that Will Smith, Enemy of the State? Movies like that.
Or the net.
The net, yeah.
Well, don't forget about the net.
Hackers, of course.
Yeah, he's a good guy hacker, from what I understand. He works for his company is contracted by the government to do security work for their systems and things like that.
Gosh dang it!
So he's paid to hack into government systems to find holes. I think that's kind of what he does. So
great. Hopefully you were allowed to say that, and we're not going to get censored by the government.
I really hope I don't die in the next hour, or he doesn't turn up dead. I have no idea.
As long as it's after we finish recording the show, right? Like,
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that much. What we do here on Spec Tales, I'm going to say this for Lance, for your benefit, but also for any new listeners out there that may not be familiar with our show. So we do 3 basic segments on every episode. We go into recent pickups, which is just us talking about anything recent, whether it's a collectible or just a comic book that we enjoyed when we read it. Then we go into the Grail Tale segment, which you've kind of talked about a little bit, and where we just get you to talk about your Grail, your big book, how you acquired it, the story behind it, maybe anything it might have inspired you to do, which in this case, we know what it turned into. So we kind of have the ending. Sure. This is a good tease, by the way. And then we always close every episode with speculation. A lot of our listeners are collectors who like to help the hobby pay for itself. And thus, we always end every episode with maybe some books to look for or something like that they could potentially flip, or something that they just may want because it'll increase in value down the road, potentially.
Yeah.
Sound good to you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's roll right into the first segment.
Recent pickups.
All right. So as that said, recent pickups. Hey, Zeus, you always lead the charge. Take it away.
Man, so it just so happened by happenstance that I, a comic book collector and connoisseur, happened upon a small, medium-sized collection. And in that collection was this stack right here, you guys can see, and these 2 that I'm highlighting, books of Gold Key comic books from the 1960s and 1970s, Silver Age and Bronze Age. I didn't know Lance was coming on. I didn't know we were going to talk about Gold Key. It just happened.
You're trying to get me to buy them off you. I know what's going on.
What do you have in the stack?
I'm sorry. What do I have in the stack?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh man, I have so many cool books. There's just so many different things that Gold Key and its history. I've always thought they were cool. Some 10-cent, 12-cent, 15-cent books. Anything with robots I like. So this is like Walt Disney, Donald Duck. I think it's number 147 with the robot on it. And then I also think it's cool because some of these were like sent directly to the person at some point, and they would put the postage or the name on the actual book itself. Which is just crazy to me, man. That's how
like a magazine, like old magazines.
Yeah, like exactly, man. And you would see these at like, kids doctors' offices and stuff like that on the table so that kids can read them. But I mean, Scrooge, anything with Scrooge, Uncle Scrooge, I like.
Moby Duck, that's nice.
The Little Monsters. I mean, there's just so many really cool stuff. And I'm highlighting a bunch of these that I have that are like the ducks and
the Disney stuff.
The Disney stuff, yeah. But there's also other stuff on here. I think like this is a cool one, Smokey and the Bear, or Smokey Bear. I'm sorry. And then Mighty Heroes. Whoever thought about that? Nice. Really cool. Well, that's actually a Dell one. That's before Gold Key turned into Gold Key.
Yep.
But just a bunch of cool books that came in there. These were actually throw-ins. I wasn't really going after the Gold Key stuff, but they're usually cool for throw-ins. You never know what you're gonna get in them. But what I didn't get is, and you know what? Maybe that's a tease too. I'll talk about what I didn't get that I'll be looking for.
Oh, tease for maybe some speculation.
Maybe.
Nice.
But that's my recent pickup, man. They came in this small collection I picked up, and the collection itself is also a grail tale for later. But I just thought they were
cool. I appreciate you bringing those out. It's funny because, I've been collecting books for a long time. I've never paid much attention to most of the Gold Key books because I haven't been a fan of really, I was never really a fan of like the Disney titles, kind of like what you brought up. So it makes me laugh though, because I've got like thousands of them now. You know what I mean? Like every time I come across a Gold Key, I'm like, I have to have them and hold on to it now. But they did have some titles that were wicked cool on the covers that weren't as child oriented or young kid oriented. That if people start to explore the Gold Key brand that used to exist, there is a lot of really cool titles and covers from back then that go beyond Scooby-Doo. And so it's funny when I make fun of it because it's just kind of a funny publishing company from back that time. A lot of these titles, like Disney, they didn't own Disney. They bought the rights to lease out some of the Disney stuff. And when I was in a comic store recently, and I won't say where because it's the only comic book store in the city, but I was trying to buy Gold Key books, and he's like, oh, I got lots of Gold Key books. He tells me, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, I own Gold Key. I told him, and like thinking like he'd think that was cool or something. He goes, oh no, I own Gold Key is what he said. He brings out this box and it's like 500 Gold Keys. I said, no, sir, you don't understand me. I own Gold Key, the publishing company. And he goes, I'd be more impressed if it was Dell. So when you said Dell, I looked at my brother and I was like, oh my God, all right, dude, whatever. So I should have gone after Dell. Point of the story, but
man, you got just downplayed by a cranky old shop owner.
Yeah. Oops.
That's
man,
awesome.
But there's just a lot of history with Gold Key too, man, that you bring up. Like this one right here too. I don't know if you saw that, but that's a Whitman.
Oh,
and some of them, they're the same company. Gold Key was the same company as Whitman. They would just do the reprints under Whitman for some reason. I don't know. I wasn't around back then, but for some odd reason, they would put Whitman on some and Gold Key on others, which is just weird. But it's just a really cool company, man. A lot of history steeped in Gold Key.
Yeah.
And like you did say, there is a lot. And I think we'll touch on the speculation part of some of those other titles.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, Lance, I'm going to let you go next on the recent pickup train.
Oh, man. Recent pickup train. So I think the most memorable pickup that I've recently had, how recent are we talking? Are we talking like last 48 hours or last year, or last 6 months?
No rules here, since I mean, for Jesus and I, it's usually weekly because we do this weekly. but
Gotcha.
but you've never been on the show, so you could say something you recently picked up in the last 10 years. I guess I don't know. It's up to you.
All right, I'm gonna break some rules then, because I think my best pickup story happened about 8 months ago, 6 to 8 months ago, something like that. So basically, if any of the listeners are familiar with Arizona and ASU, Arizona State University, there's a theater here called the Gamage Theater, and that family is kind of like a pioneer family in Arizona. They're like some of the kind of founding members, and they were some of the founding politicians back in the day, from what I understand. So they're kind of like Arizona royalty, if you will. Well, I got a call from a buddy of mine who they were family friends with the Gamage family. And he was talking to them, and it just came up that he had a bunch of comic books from when he was a kid that he was still holding on to. And he was thinking about selling them. So he's like, well, hey, my friend buys books. So he puts it together for us. So I get a call from him. He says, hey, man, the Gamage family has been sitting on some collection. And, to me, I'm going, oh, man, this is going to be crazy, like this iconic family, from Arizona. And so I call this guy, and again, I'll keep first names out of it or whatever. Sure. But he, I guess I just gave away his last name. Maybe he doesn't want to know. Anyway, it'll be fine. So I call him, and and he's like, basically is like, yeah, I've got this collection, and I own this shopping complex, and in the complex is this Oriental grocery store. And in the back of that grocery store, I've got my comic book collection that's been sitting there untouched for 40 years.
Wow.
So to me, immediately, I'm like, all right, 40 years, we're talking pre-1980, all books, which is awesome. You know what I mean? Like, if you guys are familiar with the post-war era, that's kind of where I get the name from. I specialize in anything like earlier than 1991 is predominantly what shows up on my shows and stuff. But anyways, dude, this story is straight out of like what you would read in a Hustler magazine. The wildest thing, not sexually related either, just like comic men and women sit around just lusting over this sort of a thing to happen to them. So I get back there, and there's no air conditioning in the back of this grocery store, which is terrible. It's in the middle of, it's Arizona, so it's hot. This was like 7 months ago, so it's right in the middle of some heat going on. And it is exactly what you think it is. It is shelves after shelves after shelves of like little skinny aisles that I have to dig through and get through. And at the very end of it is all these boxes. But I get back, I'm like, man, there's tons of boxes. So I'm like, I'm just going to grab one and haul it back out. It probably took me 5 minutes just to grab one book or one box. We pull the box out. I got my buddy with me, and I have no idea what I'm walking into, right? So we open the box, and I'm not even kidding. The first book that we pull out is X-Men 1, the original. And I like look at it, and I like show my buddy, and the guy is between me and my buddy. So he's got his back to my friend, and my friend just goes, oh, like just quietly to himself kind of thing. And I'm just like keeping my cool, like, oh, and I kind of like pick it up and look at it, put it back. Oh, that's a good book. And I put it down, but I didn't like oversell it. You know what I mean? And the guy looks at it, he goes, oh yeah, that's a dumb book. That's what he said to me. He goes, that was a dumb book. I didn't care so much for that. And the whole time through, I'm just, it was the entire run of X-Men all the way. It was X-Men 1 through X-Men 66. So right before they did the reprints, It was ASM 4 all the way through ASM up to everything up to 1967, essentially, or 1977. So, wow. Yeah. ASM Fantastic Four issue 10 all the way through 1977. Every Marvel run you could think of. Complete.
Wow.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And immediately I'm thinking, like, how am I going to pay for this? Like, how am I going to get this? And so I just made I kept my cool. I went out in the parking lot and I made some Hail Mary phone calls to some business partners of mine and some other things that I'm involved in. And I was like, listen, I need $50,000 now, like right now, because I just wanted to show up with a bunch of cash and just hope to God he would say that's enough money and get out of there, right? And so I get up there and I'm just like, he's like, hey, how much do you think this is going to go for? And I'm like, I'll be honest with you, man, you know, this could sell for, by the end of this, we might do $250,000 on this stuff, $250,000, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But like nothing was bagged and boarded. And I'm not going to sell a Silver Age book in a flimsy, you know, BCW bag or whatever. So my best pickup story or acquired story definitely is the grocery store story where I was able to acquire just boxes and boxes and boxes. We're talking probably 10,000 books of all Marvel full runs. So it was a dream. It was like a total lucky thing, like total.
Yeah. The comic book dream come true, right? Like that's just being not even acquiring it, just discovering it, walking in there and pulling that first box out and find that like I'm done. Like I just lived a full life. This is the end of it.
When I got back to my house, we were at the kitchen table and and I mean on my wall right here, you guys can't see it, but I've got like, you know, Avengers 1 in here, Daredevil 1 all the way through is in there, Iron Man 1 all the way through is in there, you know, Strange Tales 110 was in there, you know, like everything you could possibly think of. And I mean, I got to a point where I'm just like, just like picking everything. We couldn't stop laughing. Like I really, like, I think my eyes glossed over a little bit. I just saw like, I just couldn't believe it, man. It was
you were Scrooge McDuck. You were Scrooge McDuck, just swimming in comic book money.
Gold key full circle, yeah.
There you go.
All right. I should not have let you go second. I should have let you go last on that story because now I have to do a recent pickup that is not as good as that at all. You just did a grail tale for a recent pickup. That's not fair at all. No, thank you very much for sharing that. That's incredible. Awesome. You are welcome to come back and tell those stories anytime. So I'm going to do my recent pickup real quick. This is something that I picked up. There was a small con near in a mall near where I live a week ago or so. And this is Miracle Man #1, Eclipse Comics. This was published in 1985 and written by the haunting Alan Moore and art by Alan Davis. And I read through this thing. It is Alan Moore. Alan Moore wrote this. Like, if you didn't know it, like if his name was not on this cover, you would know by the time you got like 3 pages in, because this thing, like, it starts out in the 1950s, which it does a really good job of sticking with the original Marvel Man style. But then it flashes forward and holy crap, it's Alan Moore. Like, it gets intense and weird, and I had to reread pages because I was confused, but I get confused easily. So that's not it's not a confusing book. That's just a me thing. Anyway, so Miracle Man is there's a ton of turmoil and lawsuits and stuff going on with Miracle Man right now. And anybody listening out there, we don't have enough time to delve too deep into the Miracle Man conundrum that is who owns Miracle Man. But I can tell you it's a lot of fun. Like, it is one of those like rabbit holes, like clear your Friday night, check out, just Google Miracle Man and go down every rabbit hole you find, because it'll take you on a ride.
I think there's been like 2 books written about it as far as the rights go, because there was so many divided and purchased, and then the purchaser got sold, but then they didn't realize that the rights reverted back to the creators if it ever got sold. So, I mean, it's just a crazy story in itself for Miracle Man and who owns it. Which is kind of, I mean, something that hopefully we can talk about here with Gold Key as well, and just how it went, you know, through all these people to finally get to Lance, which I think is pretty cool as well.
Yeah. A few things. I love that you brought up that Miracle Man book. Have you guys ever looked at Miracle Man #9?
No. What should we be
Okay.
looking for?
Miracle Man #9 is not for the fan of heart. It's a great book. I love the Miracle Man series, guys. I'm so with you on that. I love that you picked that up. #9 has the most terrifyingly graphic birthing scene you've ever seen in your life. Like, you're flipping through and there's this woman who's kind of in this transcendent weird space, and then the very next panel it just bites you with a widespread vagina, if I'm allowed to say that, with a head coming out. It's like the craziest thing you've ever seen. It's the most weirdest thing in comics there is a Miracle Man #9. But I love Miracle Man, dude. I think it's such a cool series. The other weird thing about that book, that #1, right under the yellow line on the front, most copies have this little scratch in it from the opening side edge. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Is there a little line right there?
Yeah, there is a line right here. That's
good
crazy.
luck ever. So if you send that book in and get it graded and they knock you for that, CGC is wrong. Look, I'm in a different state than Jake is. That is a manufactured error that's on almost every single Miracle Man #1 book there is. And you can see it. Maybe we could post a photo about that. So don't look. People, you can get them for cheap because people think, oh man, there's something wrong with that book. There's nothing wrong with that book. So it's a great little insight as to bump your money right there, because Miracle Man 1 goes for a pretty penny.
Yeah, this that was the thing that I had looked at it. I got it dirt cheap. I mean, seriously, I got this thing for less than $20. I was super excited about it. It's pristine. There's really no nicks on the spine. There's just like you said, that printer's crease. I don't know what they call it, but
yeah, exactly.
I knew immediately that it was a printer's crease though, because I had gotten a Eternals #1 that had a printer's crease in it. And I had gotten it graded and it came back a 9.4, and the crease was the entire back.
Gotcha.
I was initially very concerned about it, but it came back a 9.4, and they didn't dock it for it, seemingly.
Yeah.
Also check the interior. On some of the interior pages, Alan Moore did sign some of those books, and they're just randomly put out there.
What? Who does that?
Alan Moore from a Spectail perspective, I'm pretty sure there's something recently happened with Donnie Cates in this book. I've heard maybe he's picking up the story or something like that. So it's hard for me to keep up with all that. But
yeah, so there was a Kang miniseries that was 5 issues that I read that was very good. It also had the first appearance of Ravonna Renslayer as Moon Knight, which I think that's going crazy right now too. But then after that miniseries, it started with Timeless, and at the end of Timeless is supposed to be a flash forward into the Marvel universe, and at the end of that issue it ends with Miracle Man's logo, and that was it. Yeah, so that's why there's a lot of spec on that as well too. But it's just really interesting, the history of Miracle Man is derivative of Marvel Man, which is derivative of Shazam, which is derivative of Superman. So it's like a lot of iterations go into it, and also with the rights of it and the publishing rights, which is just really, really interesting.
Well, I have just gone through the entire book, and I do not have an Alan Moore signature. Jesus, I blame you for getting my hopes up on that. Thank you. That was a wild goose chase I did not need to go on. But anyway, I saw the book. I wanted to read it. I read this copy. I was just so interested and intrigued by the storyline, and I will continue it. I'm going to have to figure out how to acquire the other ones. And I may also just to read it, I may see if I can find this thing digitally to get it.
I could send it to you. I've got the whole thing digitally. I'm pretty sure I could just send it over to you.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. That is going to do it for the recent pickup segment. I think everybody did a great job, but it's hands down Lance won this one. And then I think I came in second, and unfortunately Jesus lost. So, but we are going on to our favorite segment of the show. It is none other than the Grail Tale segment.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
That's right. The Grail Tale segment.
Who makes those?
We had a buddy of ours who is a audio composer helped us with our music drops.
And there's a Easter egg. There's a whole song that Jake did that we may or may not post at some time.
Don't worry, I'll
That's
edit
awesome.
that out. No, nobody needs to know about the full song. Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, Lance, the Grail Tale segment is where we ask our guests to wow us, even though you've already done it, with a Grail Tale about the story behind a book, something that meant a lot to you. And we kind of let people just make it what they will, make it what they want. So I don't want to put too much constraints on you. I'm just going to let you take the mic.
All right. Well, basically, when I started in comics, I was scrounging for change for Jack in the Box tacos on my car. My wife was like literally, like, I lived that life in my 20s for a long time. My wife, she married me with the promise that I was going to do well. I was like, babe, I'm opening a coffee shop and I'm going to make so much money. If anybody's listening that owns a coffee shop, there's no money in coffee unless you're a Starbucks owner or something like that. So we've got a great coffee shop. It actually does well. And we do make a little bit of money. But she was the breadwinner. She was a nurse. She was making like $75,000 a year, something like that. And she got a signing bonus at her job. And she was going to get like $10,000. And she was like, all right, honey, I'm going to give you some money because I know, you've been wanting some money. And I was like, all right, here's the deal though. Like, I'm kind of tired of having to ask you for money. And whatever I do with this money, I get to just keep spending, out of the money that I make from it. She's like, sure, if you're going to take $1,000 and make money off it, go right ahead. So she gave me $1,000. She's like, what are you going to do with it? And I was like, I'm going to buy comic books. And she was like, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. Don't do that. That's so dumb. And I started posting ads on Craigslist, which was just terrible. I couldn't understand why nobody would respond to me. I was like on Facebook groups, like, I've got $1,000. I had no idea what to buy. I didn't know what I was doing. And I ended up buying this little collection in, one like the little towns that are outside of cities that are really just kind of trailer park towns. There's some sketchy stuff going on. I bought this collection out there and it was just 90s garbage, but it had a Strange Adventures 205 in it, which is the first appearance of Deadman. Mm-hmm. So I got lucky. My first buy, I thought, oh man, look, I just spent $30 on a collection. I only gave the guy $30 because it was 90s X-Men stuff, but I didn't realize at the time there happened to be this Deadman in there. It's like a bin full. It's like a bin where they're all smashed in there together. So I turned my $30 into $200, and I still had the back, $800 in the background or whatever. Needless to say, I flipped my first $1,000 and I, maybe make like $1,500 or something like that. And we're going after the Grail Trail. I'm going to get so sidetracked the whole way there. But the reason I bring this up is because in the beginning, the first thing that I had to have that I thought, man, this is the coolest comic book I've ever seen. There was two things. I was after Strange Tales issue 169, the first appearance of Brother Voodoo. I love jungle, south, voodoo, creepy alligator, whatever. The last trip I just went on was to Louisiana, and we went out solo into the woods and came across alligators, dude. Craziest thing I've ever seen. Anyway, so I really wanted the Strange Tales 169, and I really wanted the limited 4 set of Wolverine 1 through 4, the limited series. And to me, just those alone, I could never afford that. I thought, oh my God, who could ever pay? And at the time, this was probably would have been like, I was probably like getting mad about having to spend maybe $30 on a number 1. You know what I mean? Which is like cheap. And those books have gone up a lot in value. But then I got those and I started getting books like Strange Tales 169. And then, Jesus, you talked about, you kind of followed me on Instagram and stuff and started doing shows. And then I was like, man, all right, I need to actually set a real dream book. A Grail to me was defined by like Hulk 181 is what everybody wanted, something that's of a few $1,000s value. Well, I'm born in 1985 and I grew up and cut my teeth on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So to me, the Copper King was TMNT number one. And so I started off with getting issue number 4, one of those first 4 oversized issues. Then I got number 3. Then I got number 2. And I was just like, I'll never get a number 1. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to get a number 1. And then grocery store thing happened. And I sold my X-Men 1. My buddy just happened to have, by all magic, a TMNT number 1 that he was brokering a sale for. Check this out. It was an 8.5 off-white, I think. I don't remember. Either way, I was like, an 8.5, I don't care. A number 1, that's a crazy book. I thought I'd get like the 3rd printing or the 2nd printing, you know what I mean? And sold it to me with a number 2, a number 3, and a number 4 for $17,000. And this was about, I don't know, 10 months ago or so, 8 months ago.
Oh, and then it exploded.
That book's worth $30,000 now. You know what I mean? It's like it went up like 10 grand in the amount of time that I had it. But I paid 18 for it or 17 for it. I sold 2 through 4 because I already had those. So I really only paid like 1,500 or 15,000 for it. Sorry, I'm saying 1,500, 15,000.
Yeah.
For it. So I got a great deal on that. So my Grail book is Turtles number 1. And sadly, it's the Grail book that I do not own anymore. So my Grail book is one that I don't have anymore.
And it's going to be hard to come back to acquire. That's going to be,
dude,
that's not a boomerang
I'll never
book.
get it again.
I don't know if that's a boomerang. I mean, it could be.
I mean, it is, man. I mean, so a couple of things, TMNT number 1, I think is the first time we've had this one on the show. So I think that's pretty awesome. There was only under 3,000 of the first printing made. They weren't taken care of. They were in boxes in Eastman and Laird's room when they started selling them out of their car, going to LCSs and telling them to buy them before they sold out. So that's an awesome one. But 2, yeah, man, it is going to come back. It's a boomerang. If you used it to get Gold Key, right? Gold Key is going to, go do more things, which we'll probably get into here. But it'll come back, man. They always come back.
I hope so. But now I can't sell for the life of me main title number 1s or main title big first appearances. I just can't sell them anymore because I'm like, I've got so much seller's remorse over the whole deal that I can't let them go. So I'm actually failing financially in my comic business because of my biggest books. I'm like, I'm not selling that, dude. There's no way. I'm not really failing. But anyways.
Had to clarify that though.
But if anybody's listening, I will trade you right now. Let's do a deal. Avengers number 1, Iron Man number 1. Like, let's just list them off. Whatever you got, I'll trade you almost everything for Turtles number 1 if you have it.
There you go. Hey. Oh man, that'll be awesome if we get to facilitate that here through Spec Tales.
We'll put out the bat signal, whatever signal we got, the Comic Grail signal, and we'll see if we can track one down for you. We'll make it happen.
Love it.
You're talking to the right guys, I think.
Yeah, I believe it.
Awesome. And the thing that I really like is that this Grail tale isn't quite complete because you told it's kind of like you told the second half of this story earlier, which is fantastic because this Grail tale turned into a Gold Key publishing company. It turned into a publisher. Holy shit. Like how? This is incredible to me that it goes from being your Grail to you now own a publishing company, one of 4, correct, to own it. And that's pretty sweet. I just want to say I can't get over the fact that a Grail book was used to acquire a comic book publishing company, a premier publishing company at that.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So congratulations. I know you're sad that you lost your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1 and you should be sad. That's a great book, but congrats on owning Gold Key.
Yeah. And there's new excitement in the air. And maybe we'll talk about this, but lots of stuff coming up with Gold Key that has now got my wheels turning in a whole nother way. So,
don't worry, you're not getting out of here without telling us some thoughts or ideas about what's happening. But I think that really actually is a really perfect segue into our next segment because we do want to talk about projecting and future stuff, and that's where speculation comes in.
Speculation.
I love those audio drops, man.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a ton of fun with them. And that really is kind of where we wanted to take it. Speculation segment. We'll go around the horn. Each one of us is going to talk about kind of something that we are looking at for future value. And Lance, by all means, if it's something where you want to start talking about a little bit of what's coming up for Gold Key, we can do it in this, or we can talk about it afterwards if you have some spec thoughts that you want to also throw out. But Lance, You don't get to go first this time. I'm going to go first because last time I went last and you kicked my ass. So I'm not going after you again.
Gotcha.
I know I am going to go first, and I'm going to go ahead and I was going to talk about Gold Key. A lot of people will know about the kind of the go-tos, the Scooby-Doo, Star Trek, Twilight Zone. And Jesus, I don't know I know we were kind of both going to be specking on Gold Key, so I hope I don't steal any of your thunder, but that's also why I decided I was going to go first. So I wanted to talk about a book that immediately got my attention, and that is Dr. Solar, #1. So this is the first appearance of Dr. Solar. This is a science fiction story. It's a little pricey. You can find this online, but it's mid grades are going for a few $100s. But I think it's a really, really cool story. And the artwork cover is really sweet. I recommend everybody go take a look at it, Google it, take a look. It really is kind of, a lot of people know Gold Key for that Scooby-Doo look, for that Hanna-Barbera or the Disney characters or things like that. But this was really one of those characters that until I knew about it, right? Like I didn't associate that with Gold Key. And I think that is an interesting fact, especially maybe Lance, for you, what you guys are kind of looking at in the future, because what was Gold Key, and everybody kind of associates it maybe with the cartoon characters, but there were far more characters to pull from in that Gold Key history. And so I wanted to call out Dr. Solar, #1. I think that there is, to me, I just kind of want it because it suddenly became, just one of those craveable books, right? You see the cover and then you start seeing it in your dreams, and then you're just like, well, I guess I need to go out and find that. And it does hold some value. So I think that's good.
Yeah.
And the other one that I was just going to toss out, and this one is because I wanted to say it in case Jesus was also going to say it, so I wanted to say it first. And that is Dagar, the Invincible, #1. This is the 1972, and it's the first appearance of Dagar, which is a kind of Conan swords and sorcery. And it's another badass cover. It's got some skeletons on it and, wielding swords, and it looks pretty sweet. I have not read into it, but I knew this was the type of book Jesus would say. So I really am just trying to rain on his parade.
Impossible. There's no rain where I come from.
Jesus, it's okay. If you don't have, if I took all your books and you don't have anything to talk about, we can go to Lance next. If you're all.
No, I do not want to follow Lance. No, I'm not going to make that mistake that you made earlier.
All right. Well, that's what I had for speculation. Jesus, we'll let you go next.
All right, man. Along the same lines with this Gold Key that I was teasing earlier, there's so many cool characters, original characters. And just the like you mentioned, people know the comic stuff that's right here next to me, like the Hanna-Barbera style, the Disney style, but there's also those cool covers like the Dr. Solar, not necessarily Solar, just like the Scarce Army. And they're painted covers, right? So they're painted covers, and they also did this cool thing where on the back of the book, they would do the painted cover without any lettering over it, so it could be a pinup for people, which I thought was an extra value or value add for them. The books that I'm talking about here have also cool covers, and that's why I'm highlighting them. One is Magnus, the robot fighter. That's a cool original character with a cool cover. And then Mars Patrol, the Total War. I think it was a 10-issue run in the mid 60s. which is the Silver Age, right? Like Silver Age books right now are going crazy. These books had really good writers. Wally Wood, Wally Wood was one of the writers on Marsh Patrol. And it's just a good story, man. It's a good story. So those are the two that I would highlight: Magnus the Robot Fighter and Marsh Patrol Total War, the 10 issues. Get those books, man. Those are cool covers. They're bound to go up, in my opinion. And then depending on what Mr. Lance wants to do with some of these original characters, man.
Yeah. Dude, the Wally Wood, man, is one of my favorite. Man, I love Wally Wood. Glad that you brought that up. I'm with you guys. I think the painted covers are infinitely cooler. You know, I'm not hating on Disney or Hannah or Scooby-Doo. To be honest, there's not a lot of conversation in the Gold Key bullpen, if you will, about resurrecting anything related to, you know, Scooby-Doo or Little Lulu or anything like that. And we're with you guys. We're very drawn to some of those old painted covers, man. Like just some of the ones off the top of my head. One of my favorite Gold Key covers, as of right now, I'm still discovering them daily because we're just collecting Gold Key books like crazy. One of the things we plan to do is we sell new Gold Key merch and new Gold Key books. We're just going to be throwing in some of those old titles as giveaways just for people to be able to like enjoy part of the story arc, right, from old to new with it. So we're just grabbing up everything we can Gold Key right now. So Jesus, I will broker a deal with you on those Gold Key books if you want to get rid of them. But one of the things we loved about Gold Key was that we thought, you know, everybody has these books in their collections. If you ever bought a collection or collect comic books, they just end up in your house somehow. And so we're like, everybody knows who Gold Key is, right? But also those old painted covers we thought were super dope. I got to go look at the Mars Patrol one because I haven't actually seen that. But since Wood's behind it, I'm gonna have to. So I'm learning live from you guys about Gold Key right now. But Tiger Girl #1, that cover to me is so sick. I love that cover. There's a classic King Kong cover that is really cool. Magnus Robot Fighter had some great covers. Dr. Spector had some great. I can't remember now off the top of my head. Spector, I think, has some great covers. But I think the thing that I'm most intrigued by, and I'll just use this to give you guys a little bit of maybe a preview as to what we're looking at and talking about. So one of the angles that we're taking, we're taking two angles. We want to contribute to the comic book world by creating our own new content. And so we have a writer and we have some artists we're talking to. I can't say the names of those yet, of those people, but some of the names you guys are definitely aware of, which is really cool. So
nice.
I'm pumped that we're actually getting, and again, that having the Gold Key name has helped us get meetings with some people that we really respect and love. So I wish so bad I could tell you guys who some of the people are that are working on it. The other thing is, as much as we recognize the value of getting a big name, we're really a little more interested in pulling a bit of a passion play. We're kind of going after names of people that we just collectively really love and respect also. Now, there's still some big names in that pool, but it's not like I'm, going after just the biggest guy right now. You know what I mean? Although they're all really talented. We're kind of sitting back and go, man, who have we read and looked at that we think can illustrate stories in a way that are really thoughtful, that are angular. And so we're going after some really top-notch artists and writers that you guys are going to know who they are. But also, we're also hoping to resurrect some of the old titles. The problem is that a lot of the old titles are owned by Penguin House or by Valiant bought up some. I believe they bought up Magnus Robot Fighter, and I think they have Dr. Solar. So some of that stuff's tied up in $1 million deals elsewhere. One of the estates that we're talking to, and so this is your big Spec release, okay? one of the estates that we're talking to, and we haven't finalized the deal yet, but we've entered into some really nice conversations with the Boris Karloff estate.
Ooh.
If you guys are familiar with Karloff Presents, he's the legendary Frankenstein, the iconic Frankenstein image we've all seen. It's tattooed on a million people's bodies, or the Mummy. Karloff was brilliant, and we're very interested. We're also all, just like you guys, we talked about pre-code horror and how Spec Tales, the logo, kind of leans itself to that. We love horror. Karloff did the horror thing. So what does Boris Karloff look like today if it comes out, with some guys that are thinking a little bit darker than you would have thought of in the 60s? You know what I mean? So again, nothing's finalized. Nothing's set in stone. It's just something that we're discussing amongst each other, and we are working on, but we are in conversations, and we're having a really great time moving down that hallway, if you will. And the things that are coming from that, man, are mind blowing. I wish I could talk more about the things we're talking about. But I mean, we've gotten into like conversations about and surrounding all sorts of crazy stuff. So I'm being very vague now. And so
no. This is perfect, but it's fantastic. This is just exciting to us as comic book fans, right? Like the not just the resurrection of cool stories, which, by the way, Boris Karloff, I don't know if you could have said anything more interesting to us. Like, one of the things that I've talked about on this show multiple times is I love creepy magazines from the 60s. And just going back to that old horror stuff, and the Tales from the Crypt, of course, like Spec Tales, the title calls back to. All of that stuff is just, I mean, it's, I don't know, it's addictive, right? You get into it, and then it's not just the covers, which are immediately attractive. Frank Frazetta covers, or going back to the pre-code horror covers, and you get addicted to the covers. But I swear, if you just open the books, even the creepy comics, I read them all now, because
the interior works great.
The interior, the artwork is phenomenal, and the storytelling is really good. Actually, they knew how to weave these stories, and in the creepy ones, they would be like 6 pages done, 6 pages done, and they'd get like 10 stories into a comic, and you'd just be blown away because they were just fun. They were just fun page turners, and you'd be done. So I couldn't be more excited about what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's really exciting. I just wanted to follow up. I don't know if you knew about this one. It's called Grimm's Ghost Stories with Gold Key. And that's just a way for them to tell creepy stories that they would do back in the day. So yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, like Jake said, I'm excited about it. There's so much. And you wonder, as a comic book person, as a comic book collector connoisseur, like, what happened to the Gold Key? What happened to these? And you see, like you said, some people resurrecting them. Like you said, Valiant. I think Valiant launched, and they had a couple of those. I don't know if they were bought. I thought I had heard or read somewhere that they were licensed. But they're everywhere, right? Like, they're everywhere. I'm sure you know more, but it's pretty cool that we get to see it come back, and we're just at the beginning right now. And everything you mentioned, although some of it was vague, like you said, because you can't say stuff, it's still really exciting, man.
Yeah. I will say one thing, though. One of the things I'm really pumped on is we're planning to release these books on the original type of pulp and paper that the old Gold Key books came out in also. So one thing that I know for sure with the new books going forward is they're going to have the look, the feel, and the smell of the books from the era that we love and collect as well. So I'm super pumped on that. It's costing us way more to do it that way. But that's just something, those the sort of details we're trying to be thoughtful of to include with what we're doing. So
yeah, is that something that you guys take in consideration? Like you mentioned about being thoughtful, as the community is, like, you have this weight that Gold Key is a premier and premier publishing company and has its own rich history, to kind of like, elevate it, but at the same time respect it and where it's come from. Like, is that why you're making decisions like that?
Yeah, well, that, and just like, I think we just all love the way ink kind of sits on paper that way. We love the old painted covers. And if you look at a modern book, it's a lot smaller, thinner. It's more gloss oriented, you know? So like, not that that's bad. We just really we like the way the old books look and feel. But yeah, also just to like commemorate and help us remember like where all these things came from.
So that brings up an interesting thought for me. So CGC, has anybody seen a modern comic book that did not have a white page grade for page quality? All the modern books, because it's all print, it's all ink. So every single modern book gets a white pages distinction, page quality. However, if you're going back to that old style of printing and paper, you are reintroducing the possibility of decreasing in color or absorbing some of the, so you could come back to, because I've heard people talk about get rid of the page quality for newer modern books because they're all white pages. It doesn't really matter. They don't degrade, where you're reintroducing that original paper into the mix. So these books could potentially degrade paper, which also is a part of the appeal, right? The notion that these pages could become cream to off-white, you know, in 20, 30, 40 years. And that's
I think
interesting.
Whatever the first book is that we put out, I'll send it into CGC, and I'm just going to hope that it comes back off white to white pages. And if that happens, I've won, man. I beat the game.
Game over.
I'll do 2 copies, and I'll send one to you, man.
Oh, hey, I will buy it from you for sure. Thank you. All right. Well, this has been pretty incredible. I had really high hopes for the conversation, but this blew me away. So Lance, thank you. I would like to ask myself, at least, I don't know if Jesus has one, but one final question here, if I may. So you've been vague about stuff, and I appreciate why you need to do that. Can you give us any relative timeline for when we should or could expect even an announcement from Gold Key outside of what you're doing on this show?
So that's actually a really good question. The group of guys that are part of running Gold Key, you know, if it was up to Ghost Cactus, this thing would have been live and we'd have books in stores the day after we acquired the company. He is a go-getter. Me, I'm a little more methodical, and I want to do everything right. So it's been so hard just to get to a spot where we could put out a press release. I've got a bunch of like new merchandise that's being printed and created for Gold Key. Is one of the things we want to have available when the official press release goes out. Just me being transparent about it all. So I would assume probably in about 30 days time, an official press release will go out that will have they'll hit all the different press sites or whatever, and that's just the one page Gold Key's back. That sort of thing. So the site's live. People are allowed to know and talk about it. We can do podcast interviews, but we actually, as a company, haven't sent out like an official press release yet until we get a few more ducks in a row. So within the next 30 days at the latest, as early as next Friday. I'll say that. So.
Oh, nice.
It was incredible for you to share this information with us, and you know, as far as the information when you're going to release officially, right? We cannot be held responsible if you start getting some phone calls from people after our show releases before your official press release.
Well, we are taking submissions officially, so
oh, great.
If you have writers and artists that you know that want to get back in the game, head over to our website and submit. So
incredible. Well, let's start that process. Where can they go to find this?
Yep. goldkeycomics.com. It's a real bare bones kind of landing page site as of right now, as we're continuing to kind of build it up. But the submission space is up. The link is up where you can submit kind of a sidewalk version of what you have or what you're doing. Also, Instagram and Twitter, we've got live. We haven't done much there, but go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram. We're putting out once a week. We do the Gold Key of the Week, and we're just picking covers that we think are kind of cool and just showcasing them. It's just something small that we could do in the meantime until we actually begin to launch and really get serious about making an online presence. So,
well, we just followed you on Twitter, so there you go.
Perfect.
Awesome. So we got the Twitter, we got the Instagram handled, and the submissions on your website. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with as far as Gold Key or any other last message?
Oh man. No, just I'll be tuning in with you guys. So whenever you're listening to this, I'll be creepily listening in also to see how this conversation went down. So appreciate you guys having me on, and you guys have been awesome.
Oh, the
appreciate you. Yeah.
The pleasure is definitely ours. So thank you so much, Lance. That is going to do it for this episode of Spec Tales. Lance has been fantastic. Honestly, 2 Grail Tales. You kind of cheated with 2 Grail Tales in one, but that's all right. It's not really cheating if we're all winning, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's how. But thank you very much, Lance. And thank you to everybody out there listening. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at SpecTalesPod. And if you want to find us on Instagram at Spec_Tales_podcast. That's it for this week, everybody. Thank you very much.